imagine ourselves as crossing our lifespan on a journey. I use the river as an image for that. The river that has its origin in a source and eventually runs out into the ocean, where our individual journey joins up with the collective humanity, with the world soul, the anima mundi. And the river has, of course, two distinct features. One is the relative stability of riverbeds. There is something that is quite determined. The riverbeds change very slowly. The course of the river changes very, very slowly over time. But on the other hand, the river changes during the seasons. There are rivers that have a wonderful, bubbling, liveful, energetic stream, and there are rivers that are nearly dried up. The central theme in my book is the tension between predetermined fate and individual destiny. Fate, what has been spoken by the gods. If we translate the gods into archetypes, what seems to be determined archetypally, which includes, for instance, where I was born and the time I was born. And individual destiny. What is my destiny? What is my goal? Towards what am I heading? The aspect of individual decision-making, free will versus the predetermined. And I think that there is a constant tension, constant negotiation. It's not just the development through stages, but that each stage in life is also, in an archetypal sense, a distinct age. It has its own qualities, it has its own distinct challenges, and those ages may remain, or should preferably remain, in the person as we go through all the different stages. The child, from an archetypal perspective, is the idea of child, not only one's personal childhood. The idea of child pertains, for instance, to the living in the more mystical, in something that is closer to nature, to the unconscious. We look at the infant, we will see the beauty, the divinity, the transpersonal, the grandeur of this little child, who doesn't have to accomplish anything. It's pre-ego. We don't ask, hopefully, of 6 weeks old child to do anything. And when the child smiles at us, we are affected. Our heart beat, and we feel elevated by the interaction with divinity. That is not the only image that I believe it is important to experience as a child. There is also the orphan child. I believe that the orphan child pertains to that sense of abandonment, which is inevitable in any kind of development. At some stage, that has to be abandoned. However good it has been, at some stage it needs to be abandoned, because otherwise there's no development. The poor is like an archetypal image. I connect it with a fire. If the child thrives in water, so here we have the fire. We have the fire of youth. In many cultures, rites of initiation during adolescence have to do with fire. The young will have to learn the idea of fire. Fire is nature's foremost transformative energy. It can be destructive unless it's reined in and controlled and interacted with by the ego. But if it's in dialogue between nature and ego, then fire can be used as Prometheus does. He brings fire to use of humanity, to keep warm, to cook, for transformation. Ideas require transformation. Creativity requires a certain fire. The poor puella as images of youth, they are the link between the child and the adult. They try to carry some of the fire, the idea, the ideology, the spirit, and try to bring it into their own adulthood without losing the fire. You will so often hear the young say, I need to be different from my parents. They have submitted to the habits, to regularity. They are only interested in making a living. They have lost the spirit, and I don't want to live my life as gray as they do. I believe that one major task of youth, of the poor and the puella, is to try to make that fire land safely in the world of adulthood. The king is often inflated. The king forgets that he is merely human. I think that is what sometimes happens to many of us as adults, and I think it's often what causes some aspects of the midlife crisis. The ego thinks it can rule by itself, that it doesn't need any connection to its sources. That's why in so many fairy tales, the king must die. And some of those kings are not willing to die. They're not willing to abdicate. They are not willing to turn over the rule to the next generation. They hold on to power. And this is when the spirit is lost, the fire is quenched, the extreme of the father archetype, the father who sets the rules, who does not accept that he might be overthrown. That is one aspect of the adult. I give another much more positive image as well, which I like to call the carpenter ego. To be a carpenter requires patience, to be exact, to replicate something of nature's order, to use material from nature and to relate to it in order to make it fit and to make it stable in the world of ego.